This is CBC Winnipeg News.
Good evening. Thank you for joining us tonight. A 39-year-old man is dead after being shot by police near Pembina Highway. CBC's Zubina Ahmed brings you more from the scene today.
This alley behind Dalhousie Drive in Fort Richmond has been taped off by the police since morning. According to the police, an officer pulled a vehicle over around 12:40 a.m. The occupants of the vehicle attempted to flee and pin the officer down. The officer in turn fired his gun, striking the man driving the vehicle. Achal Jaiswal, living in the vicinity, could hear some fighting and screaming last night.
I think the fight was between police and the men. I'm not sure because that very second when the person was screaming, I could hear the police voice. I was so afraid. It was just next to my window, but I couldn't get up and see. And finally, when I got into my senses, then I woke up. I could hear ambulance, police, so many police and all. I could see police running here and there.
Police said the man was transported to hospital in critical condition. He has since died from his injuries. Jaiswal says she heard sounds of shots fired.
I heard, fire twice.
Okay.
Twice, I think.
Oh, so you heard
Yes.
two
Yeah.
shots?
Yeah,
Okay.
I heard 2 shots also. 2, I can't count it, but yes, I heard it.
Another nearby resident, Asif Iqbal, said he saw police cars outside his house last night, but wasn't aware of exactly what had happened.
We heard some doorbell in our house, but we didn't open that because we were scared who was there. We didn't expect someone. At 2.
Okay, so
A police was here. He was walking around here. I tried to say hi to him, but he didn't respond to me.
a female passenger remains in police custody, police said. Police are not releasing any additional information while the watchdog investigates. The Independent Investigation Unit has assumed responsibility. Zubina Ahmed, CBC News, Winnipeg.
There are no new details from Winnipeg Police tonight about the shooting in West Broadway that left 4 people dead and another in hospital. It happened early Sunday morning in a rooming house on Langside Street. Today, that house remained taped off by police. Angela Clausen is with the Bear Clan Patrol. She was outside the house this afternoon to smudge and offer prayers to the families and the victims.
I just came as a private citizen, but also as a member of the Bear Clan to show my respects to the family. This is devastating for our community. This is a community I love and call home. I've lived here 25 years, and it's a heartbreaking situation.
Clausen says the Bear Clan Patrol will be spending more time in the West Broadway area over the next couple of weeks to help community members feel safer. Police have not named any suspects in this shooting or announced any arrests. A man and woman from Mexico have been charged after Winnipeg police say they seized more than $1 million worth of methamphetamine and fentanyl from a home in the Exchange District of Winnipeg. The pair was arrested after police searched a home on James Avenue between Lily Street and Waterfront Drive in October. Police also found a handgun and counterfeit cash. Investigators say while the accused are believed to be part of a large-scale organized crime group, there's nothing that suggests the involvement of the Mexican drug cartel. Tensions are rising between the City of Winnipeg and the union representing Winnipeg transit operators after a second tentative agreement was rejected last week. The union has set a strike deadline for December 11th. The collective bargaining agreement for more than 1,400 unionized workers expired in January. The union warned bus drivers of possible disruptions as workers have started to refuse all voluntary overtime. The city says 4% of transit service hours were impacted yesterday. The Amalgamated Transit Union says its members want the city to improve working and safety conditions for bus operators. An empty parking lot in front of Winnipeg City Hall is about to get a major makeover. Construction is set to start on the site of the former police headquarters in the Exchange District. CBC's Cameron McLean has the latest on the plans for the market lands.
Jeremy Reed is the president of Market Lands, Inc., the lead developer on the project. After years of planning and delays, he's ready to get started.
This building sat for many years vacant and boarded up. So what does it mean for this community? Well, it means neither a boarded up building or a big vacant space in the middle of our downtown next to our city hall, right?
Winnipeg police began moving out of the old public safety building in December 2015. It and the former Civic Parkade were torn down in 2020. Since then, people like Jean Linklater have walked by a parking lot.
Oh yes, it's about time. It looks lonely. Yeah, the ground.
The plans call for a mix of housing, an open market, and commercial space. It will have 20,000 square feet of space for arts organizations like Mawa and Urban Shaman, something Linklater looks forward to.
I love going into doing artwork. That would be great, yeah. I definitely would volunteer there and help out to do painting.
Next door will be an 8-story residential tower with 95 units, half of which with rents set at 59% of median market rents.
Which is a greater depth of affordability in terms of the units.
Johnny Countsevich likes the idea of the project, although he worries what it might do to traffic.
It's probably going to be pretty busy during rush hour if they're going to do construction. So it's going to be a little frustrating, but I think in the end it's going to be worth it.
Construction of the Market Lands project was originally supposed to start in early 2022, but the building's heating and cooling system had to be redesigned in order to make it energy efficient, which pushed back the start of construction to this January 2024. Construction is expected to be finished by 2026. Cameron McLean, CBC News, Winnipeg.
A former Manitoba doctor has been found guilty of sexually assaulting 5 female patients. Court of King's Justice Sadie Bond says she believed the Crown had proven that Arcel Bisonet had touched the victims in a sexual nature at his St. Anne's practice between 2001 and 2017. The victims were all patients. They allege that the former doctor sexually assaulted them during medical appointments. Bisonet is facing another trial in February on another 10 counts. The city of Winnipeg is denying it's legally responsible for the injuries of a boy who fell from an elevated walkway at Fort Gibraltar earlier this year. The boy's parents filed a lawsuit in August against the city and Festival de Voyageurs, which runs the city-owned site. They say their son fractured his hip and wrist and is at risk of being permanently disabled. The parents accused the city and Festival of negligence for failing to take precautions. The city filed its defense last week and says it didn't have control over the property's condition or the people allowed to use it. The city's asking for the lawsuit to be dismissed with costs. The walkway collapsed while a group of 10 and 11-year-old students from St. John's Ravenscourt School were on a field trip to the site in May. People in St. Teresa Point First Nation are worried about how they'll feed their families this winter after a 3-day power outage in October. Many in the Flying community lost the groceries and harvested meat they had stored in their freezers for the winter. CBC's Erin Broman has more.
Okay, thank you.
When the grocery budget is gone, Esther Ann Mason does a monthly stop at a pop-up food bank at the community radio station.
It helps. Yeah, it helps. We don't know the high cost of food over here.
Harvest Manitoba sent up 5,000 pounds of food by cargo plane in October, a few weeks after a devastating 3-day power outage in St. Teresa Point First Nation. Mason, a widow, had to build a fire outside.
I had like 7 grandchildren, and I had a 2-month-old baby. In the power outage, but I managed to keep her warm and her formula warm.
But what she couldn't save was the food. She lost everything in her freezer, a meat pack bought in Winnipeg.
Steaks, chicken, ground beef, things that you normally buy from here, but less expensive.
These food banks will go to all 4 Island Lake communities, the result of a partnership between the Island Lake Tribal Council and Harvest Manitoba, an initiative Clarence Mason helped bring about. He also lost a freezer of moose meat.
The food that they sent is healthy foods and something to alleviate the the groceries with 4 people. I don't call it a handout, I call it a crisis. Food crisis, food security crisis.
A crisis made worse by the prices at the Northern store, the only option in the area.
I think they're way too high because sometimes families can really afford things for their families. And sometimes it's really hard.
Almost everything that you'd find in the Northern store is more expensive than what you get down south. But the Nutrition North subsidy does help. For example, this bologna, $12.99, still almost double what you get for it in Winnipeg. But that's better than things that don't have the subsidy, like this garlic sausage, $31.69.
Harvest Manitoba now gets that same Nutrition North subsidy. It saved them $10,000 on this shipment of food.
But now we're able to do it on a monthly basis all throughout the year, and again, serving hundreds of families.
Harvest Manitoba hopes to do more Northern food banks. Esther Ann Mason would rather not have to rely on them.
And I am angry at Manitoba Hydro. I'm not angry for myself, I'm angry for the others who are destitute. I'm sure they harvested lots of berries, harvested wild meat, and they all went to waste.
She says if she had the authority, she'd reimburse her community for what they lost. Erin Broman, CBC News, St. Teresa Point First Nation.
The sister of a man who was murdered says she wouldn't have made it through the court process without Candace House. The nonprofit offers a safe space for families of victims of crime. Candace House marks its 5th anniversary. Corinne Chief's brother, Felix Bernard, was killed 2 years ago. Chief says Candace House has helped her find some closure.
But Candace House has done a lot for myself and my family and friends. My family does commute from way to be part of these dates. I know that's a little bit of a barrier because of transportation, but this place has given me and my family a place to just be home.
Candace House also announced it's completed its $1 million expansion campaign. The money includes private donations and funding from the province. CBC meteorologist John Sauter joins us now. And John, it started off as a very cloudy day and it was like, okay, it's going to be a great one. Yeah. But we saw some sunshine.
Yeah, you know, that low pressure system that I was tracking across the north kind of pushed off to the east a little early, really helped temperatures. Here's a look at the satellite image and the radar image as well. And you can see a lot of that snow is now into northwestern Ontario. But yeah, you get a little closer here and you can see Winnipeg just kind of on the edge of the cloud right now. And this is just high, thin cloud cover up through the Interlake. But all of this clear sky out to the west gave temperatures to Brandon up around 5-6 degrees, Dauphin as well, Portage down through Carman, Winnipeg we got to 2. So it's one of those typical situations where the warmer air was out to the west and the cooler air was back to the east, still in the minuses through northwestern Ontario. But we may see a little bit of this cloud moving through tonight. You know, this is the season for lake effect snow, so I want to quickly show you what's happening down east. We've got warnings for lake effect snow across parts of Ontario here, and we're looking at pockets of snow here of 30 centimeters around Goderich, so just getting hit really, really hard. So we'll start to see that in the news in the next little while. So we've gone from 2 degrees down to -1. Northwest winds now at about 20, and those winds will stay west at about 10 to 20 through the overnight period. Our pressure's been falling slightly through the day. And this is a picture from Jocelyn out at Falcon Lake showing us what was happening this morning as the ice forms on Falcon Lake. So there's an up-to-date image of what's going on in that Falcon Lake area. All right, 3-day futurecast. We do have that low center just over northern Manitoba. You can see the arrows that are moving. Those are wind arrows at the surface, and that's the circulation around that particular low. As we get into tomorrow, we've got a bright start here in Winnipeg and most of southern Manitoba, parts of central Manitoba, but this cloud kind of slumps down a little farther to the south through the day. Even on into the evening hours, I've put a stop in here at 10:30. Could see a few little pockets of flurries or light snow, but I don't think this is enough to shovel. By the time we get back into Thursday, we're looking at a sun-cloud mix and more snow up around the Hudson Bay coastline. So, yeah, we've got a few flurries in the forecast, but nothing really serious. Clearing overnight tonight, or further clearing. A low of -6. Compare that to the -16 we had last night. Nice morning for a walk tomorrow. Light winds, -4, lots of sunshine, then a sun-cloud mix and right back to 2 degrees. So any snow on the ground really doesn't stand a chance after tomorrow. We do cool off a little bit as we get into Thursday. We've still got temperatures well above seasonal. The seasonal high is -6. We're looking at -2s and -3s for the rest of this week and right on into the weekend.
Thanks a lot, John.
You're welcome.
This is video from Hamas showing last night's handover of 11 captives to the Red Cross. The group included 8 children. That story is coming up. You're watching CBC Winnipeg News. More hostages being held by Hamas in Gaza have been released. 12 people, 10 Israeli women and 2 Thai nationals have been freed, according to the Israeli military and the Red Cross. Israel is releasing 30 Palestinians it has been holding in jail, 15 women and 15 teenage boys. And as CBC's Idil Musa reports, talks are ongoing to extend the current Israel-Hamas ceasefire and get more hostages released.
Another day, another set of Israeli hostages released by Hamas in exchange for Palestinians held in Israeli prisons. Israel and Hamas have accused each other of violating the ceasefire. Still, their fragile truce appears to be holding, as well as hopes for the continued release of more hostages and prison detainees. Afri Bibas is pleading for the return of her family, including her 10-month-old nephew.
We know exactly where they are. Hamas took them, and Hamas is required to bring them back right now. The responsible for their health and their freedom is directly in Hamas's hand.
Aid agencies say a continued pause in fighting is crucial to delivering much-needed aid to Palestinians in Gaza, where more than 2/3 of the population have lost their homes and supplies are quickly running out.
Our team saw hunger, desperation, and destruction. People who have not received any relief in weeks. Hundreds of thousands that are facing an immediate risk of starvation.
The U.S. military is flying 3 plane loads of humanitarian aid to North Sinai in Egypt to be brought into the territory. Meanwhile, Israel has sworn to annihilate Hamas, the militant group that rules Gaza. The country's prime minister says Israel will push for the release of all hostages without exception. Gaza officials say more than 15,000 people have been killed as a result of Israel's bombardment. Many of them are children, and aid agencies warn it could get much worse.
So eventually we will see more people dying from disease than we're even seeing from the bombardment if we are not able to put back this health system and provide the basics of life, food, water, medicines, and of course fuel to operate the hospitals.
Israel says the truce could be extended as long as Hamas continues to release at least 10 hostages per day. Idil Musa, CBC News, Toronto.
Now, the war between Israel and Hamas has triggered demonstrations all over the world. A movement known as Boycott, Divest, Sanctions, or BDS, is calling for a global day of action tomorrow. It's being called the International Day of Solidarity with the Palestinian people. Organizers hope to influence government action by targeting businesses. CBC's Anis Hadari explains.
Protesters have been targeting businesses in North America, trying to put financial, economic, or political pressure on institutions here to influence the situation in the Middle East and the fight between Israel and Hamas. Take Scotiabank, where protesters are challenging investments in an Israeli weapons company. It's part of what activists call the BDS movement. Boycott, divest, and sanction companies that are tied to Israel's actions in the West Bank or Gaza. The idea is that the financial consequences from companies pulling out of those areas could influence Israeli policy.
You're putting pressure on companies that they just want to make money, and yet they are being, protested for their partnership, for their complicity in what the Israeli government is doing.
It's a tactic used against other countries in the past, for example, South Africa in the late 20th century. And while pro-Palestinian groups don't agree, others call these protests anti-Semitic and say they're targeting Jewish-owned businesses.
If somebody wants to protest the Israeli government, there are Israeli government representatives in Canada at an embassy and at consulates that are the address for protest.
Regardless, some research has shown that these boycott campaigns may not work as intended.
Activists do have obviously lists of companies that you should boycott. I think that is part of the intention to change the behavior of consumers. I think the reality, though, is that people are not always willing to follow through on those intentions.
Where BDS could shift a company's behavior is if its reputation is threatened, but that may not be working in this case. For example, Scotiabank hasn't changed course on investments. Anis Haidari, CBC News, Calgary.
41 men have been rescued from a collapsed tunnel in northern India. They'd been trapped since November 12th after the section they were helping to build caved in. CBC's Salima Shivji has the latest on the rescue.
After an excruciating wait, 17 days underground, finally freedom for all 41 men trapped inside a collapsed tunnel in northern India. The joy and cheers from officials and rescuers hard to contain. As one by one the men came out, healthy and safe, greeted with hugs and sweets. We didn't focus on the lives depending on us and our progress, this rescue worker says. We just cut through all the twisted metal and rubble, and it was a success. The laborers were building a road tunnel deep in the Himalayas, an area prone to landslides when disaster struck more than 2 weeks ago. The only glimpse loved ones had of the trapped workers came days later. Grainy footage from a camera pushed down a pipe, the same way they were getting food, water, and oxygen to survive. Rescuers tried everything. For days, a large mechanical drill worked to reach the men, slamming into metal rods and debris, eventually stalling. Crews then tried to drill in vertically from the top of the mountain. Officials then had to resort to manual drilling and the expertise of so-called rat miners to break through the last few meters of rubble. Their technique unusual and dangerous, using only hand drills and pulleys. My hands have blisters from pulling the rope to get the men up through an 800-millimeter pipe, this rescuer says, but it was worth it. We were all cheering and hooting. For the father of 22-year-old Manjeet Chowdhury, the wait to see his trapped son again has been agonizing. Now he feels pure relief. I'm so very happy, the elder Chowdhury says. I'm 55. I've seen life, but my son is very young and has a long life ahead of him. I want him to fight every storm in his long life. The complicated rescue operation that captivated the country, a resounding success. The men are now under medical observation with their families close by. Salima Shivji, CBC News, Mumbai.
A diplomatic spat is deepening between the UK and Greece. It comes after Britain cancelled a meeting between their prime ministers at the last minute. It's part of a long-standing dispute over 2,500-year-old sculptures removed from the Parthenon in the early 19th century. Widely known as the Elgin Marbles, they're on display in the British Museum, and Greece wants them back. Dominic Velitis has more from London.
This row is deepening. Downing Street believed it had been given assurances that Greece's Prime Minister Kyriakos Mitsotakis would not raise the issue of the sculptures during his visit here to the UK. Indeed, officials at Number 10 said his meeting with the British Prime Minister Rishi Sunak was agreed on that basis, something which the Greeks are now saying is completely untrue. This all started on Sunday when Mitsotakis did an interview with the BBC in which he spoke of his distress that many of the Parthenon sculptures, as he knows them, remain in the British Museum and that they should be returned to Greece.
If I told you that you would cut the Mona Lisa in half and you would have half of it at the Louvre and half of it at the British Museum, do you think your viewers would appreciate the beauty of the painting in such a way? Well, this is exactly what happened with the Parthenon sculptures.
Words which appear to have angered Britain's Prime Minister Rishi Sunak, who shortly after the broadcast went out, cancelled his meeting with Mitsotakis, which was scheduled for today. The Greek PM then declined a secondary offer from Downing Street to meet with Britain's Deputy Prime Minister before announcing he was cutting short his trip and heading home. And the two men had plenty to talk about in this meeting that was cancelled, not least of all the situation in the Middle East, the war in Ukraine and other pressing issues the two countries are facing, such as immigration. Both Britain and Greece, of course, have long-standing positions on the Parthenon sculptures, the Elgin marbles. Greece wants them returned and reunited in Athens at a specially constructed museum. The UK, meanwhile, insists they're part of a permanent collection at the British Museum and should remain here in the UK. We're still no closer to the situation being resolved. It has been going on for decades now. This diplomatic spat will hardly help matters. Dominic Velisis, CBC News, London.
Back here at home, the Trudeau government has acknowledged it will not pass Pharmacare legislation this year. A law to create a national universal Pharmacare plan by the end of 2023 is a key part of the Liberal NDP deal that's kept the minority government functioning. Catherine Cullen has more from Ottawa.
It's something the NDP has been pushing for years, a national universal Pharmacare program.
We are going to force this government to finally bring in legislation to lay the groundwork for Pharmacare, to bring down the cost of medication for everyone.
The deal between the Liberals and the NDP keeping the government in power says the government must pass a Pharmacare Act by the end of this year. But with the clock running out, this minister was blunt.
Well, yeah, I don't think we're going to get it passed by the end of this year, but we'll definitely keep working, and those conversations are productive.
In theory, the NDP could bring down the government for not living up to the agreement, but they won't go there yet.
We're saying if they need more time, they're going to have to provide more help.
How would you explain to the average person on the street what more is? Is it more money in the long term? Like, I can't picture more here.
Well, stay tuned. That's all I can say.
One challenge for the government, a universal Pharmacare program, would cost billions at a time when the Liberals are trying to rein in spending.
The question here is how do we deal with the fiscal circumstance that we're in, which is real and serious.
But if cost is the issue, the Prime Minister isn't saying as much.
We know there's more to do, so we will continue to work in responsible ways to move forward to make sure that Canadians can afford to stay healthy.
Now, the NDP point out that this legislation to set up the principles of Pharmacare won't cost anything. What it will take, though, is time. The NDP are now saying that they hope that they can get something tabled before Parliament next month. Could take a lot longer, though, to actually get it passed. Catherine Cullen, CBC News, Ottawa.
Police are warning parents about the danger posed by sextortion after the tragic death of a boy in British Columbia. RCMP say the 12-year-old took his own life last month after being targeted online. Cases of sextortion involve someone threatening to expose intimate images of the victim in order to extract money or sexual favors. As Yvette Brend reports, this latest tragedy brings back pain for parents of other victims.
It's hard.
For Carol Todd, news another child has taken their life after a case of sextortion is a jarring reminder of her own pain.
It's heartbreaking for me to know that another family is going through a grieving process for a situation that could be prevented.
This would have been her own daughter Amanda Todd's 27th birthday. She took her own life 11 years ago after she was extorted online by a Dutch man, now convicted in her death.
These predators out there are, they're more advanced than they were even when this was happening to Amanda.
Prince George RCMP now say a 12-year-old boy died by suicide in October after he became a victim of sextortion.
These are not quick investigations to go through, determining where in the world this suspect may be.
Sextortion is when someone demands cash or sexual favors by threatening to expose intimate images online.
You really see this manipulation start to happen of really aggressive and explicit threats, such as, I'll go after your family, I'm going to share this and they won't love you anymore. And they'll really feed into the fears that you might have.
Experts estimate there are more than 50 cases of sextortion a day in Canada, and it's getting worse, and are urging governments and big tech companies to do more to protect kids.
Well, governments, yes, have to absolutely step in and do something. So it's been a totally abysmal, failed social experiment.
Police are urging parents to talk to their kids about the dangers.
Knowing what I know now, I would have had deeper conversations with my child and telling her that you can come to mom or dad anytime and tell us and we'll help you.
That is CBC's Yvette Brend in Vancouver. In a season of consumerism, Black Friday gives way to Cyber Monday, but after that, it's Giving Tuesday. After the break, we'll show you how a new movement during the holiday season is catching on. Stay with us. A new movement during the holiday season is catching on. Giving Tuesday is meant to celebrate and encourage giving back to the community. It takes place after Cyber Monday and marks opening day of the giving season. CBC's Sarah Levitt has more on the story from Montreal.
Vous avez trouvé un manteau, c'est ça?
Oui.
Fernand Desrues is on the hunt for a new winter coat.
Regardez plus chaud.
It's going to keep me warmer than my summer coat, he says. The coat is free, one of thousands donated across Quebec to homeless shelters and community organizations.
There's a massive outpouring of generosity, which is, I think, because of inflation, because of the housing crisis, because of the refugee crisis, people are seeing more suffering. They're more aware, they're more informed, and that's leading to generosity.
Across the country, Giving Tuesday is being celebrated. In Toronto, these bank employees are spending their day prepping free hygiene kits for those in need.
Often in our own busy life, we forget about neighbors and friends in need. And today is a moment to remember and to do a small thing that makes a big difference.
Giving Tuesday, a campaign meant as a counter to the consumerism of Black Friday and Cyber Monday.
The idea was, let's have a day when we think about our giving and we give back to the community. And that was the genesis of Giving Tuesday.
The rising cost of living has more and more people seeking help, and government aid propping up nonprofits throughout the pandemic is gone. And yet, in a time of great need,
giving has remained incredibly strong. Canadians are generous, and giving has doubled since 2011.
This year is on track to follow that trend. Canadians spent more money on shopping this past weekend than expected. Shopify says sales from merchants using its software were 22% higher than last year. That spending, experts say, is a good indicator of how much people will be willing to donate in turn. Sarah Levitt, CBC News, Montreal.
Weather Update is brought to you by the art and beauty of the National Ballet of Ukraine. January 29th at the Burton Cummings Theatre. Tickets at nationalballetukraine.com.
Well, John, it seems that Mother Nature was rather generous herself, giving us some warmer temperatures here in the south.
Yeah, you know, warm enough here in Winnipeg. We still have some temperatures on the map that are above zero. Have a look at this. Still 3 degrees west of the Red River Valley now, out around areas like Portage and Ely, and a little bit cooler off into northwestern Ontario. So let's go to the temperature map and I'll show you exactly what's going on. -1 at the airport in Winnipeg, but we're still above zero here in the downtown area. Around the rest of southern Manitoba, 5 degrees earlier in Brandon, now 1s in Dauphin, Melita, and the Brandon region, and quite a bit cooler out to the east. Sprague at -3, same with Kenora. Up to the north, we've been watching this low pressure system push on through, so on the warm side of the low, it's still above zero. 2s right now in Flin Flon and the Paw, but -12 in Thompson, and some fresh snow on the ground to kind of get at the shoveling. That's all part of this cloud here, and the thicker cloud you see off in northwestern Ontario is where we're still seeing some snow falling. Light snow in Red Lake, another couple of centimeters off into the Dryden area, then a low of -7. Here, we'll just see varying amounts of cloud and clear sky, a few flurries around Pinawa, some light snow around Barons River, and then off into parts of western Manitoba, it is much clearer, a low of -5 in Brandon, otherwise -3s through Dauphin, Portage, Carman, and down into the Morden and Winkler area. Still a couple of centimeters here out of this system in Lynn Lake and down through Thompson, and some light snow in Gillum, and down to -15 in Thompson. Tomorrow, temperatures don't recover all that much. A lot of cloud across the north tomorrow, and temperatures in Churchill will start in the mid-teens, end up at about -24 by the afternoon. So it's a falling temperature and a windy day in Churchill. Here across the south, 2s, 3s, 4s in the west, 2 degrees once again in Winnipeg, 3 in Steinbach, 4 in Emerson, and finally cracking the freezing mark for a daytime high in Kenora at 0, but +2 in Fort Francis. So temperatures that might make you think that it's time to get out and get a tree. Here's a few safety tips for you. 1 out of 4 tree fires are because the tree is too close to a heat source, like a heater or a fireplace. They should be at least 3 feet away, and you need to water those trees a lot to kind of keep them moist and keep them from drying out too much. 1 out of 3 Christmas tree fires are because of electrical problems, too many lights on the tree, that sort of thing. And yeah, you just want to always keep the tree off, keep the lights off when you go to bed at night, and always have a fire extinguisher handy as well. So a few safety tips.
Yeah. Thanks, John, for those safety tips. Well, John,
yeah.
I mean, Christmas tree lots are already open all over the city.
Yeah, they sure are. And I was over at one in East Kildonan today. I was talking to Mike Wall from Winnipeg Y Service Club about a Christmas tree lot that's been serving that community for over 4 decades. So, Mike, thanks for inviting us down today. Winnipeg Y Service Club, and I walked on the tree lot here and immediately smelled the trees, and it feels like Christmas. This has been going on for quite a number of years. Maybe tell me a little bit about the Winnipeg Y Service Club and how long this has been going on.
Sure. The Winnipeg Y Service Club started in 1979.
I'm doing the math. That's 44 years.
44 years, that's right. So I'm a second generation volunteer member here at the Y Service Club. And it was a group of young men that wanted to give back to the community. And so as the years have passed, now 44 years later, many of those original members have retired. And we've had an opportunity for some of us younger folks to step in and try to fill the boots that the older fellas had left behind.
Now, this is a volunteer-driven service, right? This tree lot, and you know, over Western Canada, service clubs like this have had trouble getting volunteers, but that's not the case here in Winnipeg.
That's right. We're one of the very fortunate volunteer groups, especially with the Y Service Clubs, that continues to recruit new membership and new volunteers. So we're very excited about that.
Okay, let's talk about the trees. If we want to walk over here, the trees we have are what kind?
We have balsam firs. We imported this year from Nova Scotia, which is not our traditional tree, but we managed to find a new supplier in Nova Scotia, and they brought us some beautiful balsam firs this year.
Oh, they smell great, and this kind of tree is, you know, it's my favorite. My wife and I love this tree, and it holds good ornaments. And
that's right. They're a fairly robust tree. So if you've got an extensive amount of ornaments, or you've got some big heavy ceramic ornaments, that sort of thing, these trees will get the job done for you.
And they're softer, so you don't end up bleeding.
That's
you know,
right.
after...
Yeah, you're not all marked up after getting it all decorated and lit up.
So the lot is open now for the season. What are the hours of operation?
That's right. We got started last Friday, and we're open Monday to Friday, 2 p.m. until 9 p.m. Saturdays are 9 a.m. until 9 p.m. and Sundays around 10 a.m. until 6 p.m.
And if somebody's going to buy a real tree and put it up in their house, what kind of advice do you have for making it last? The first thing you do is?
The first thing you'd want to do is get the bottom trimmed off, but don't do that too early, just before it goes in the house. Get it in a stand, and lots of water, lots of water, lots of water. Now you can look up, do you need to put sugar in the water? Do you put 7-Up or ginger ale? All I can say is just lots of water. If you want to add some extras, then great, but lots of water.
Okay, well, that's good advice. So cut it just before you go in.
Just before it gets in the house.
Oh,
yeah.
And now the proceeds to the tree lot here, going to several different local charities. Maybe tell me a little bit about that.
That's right. So locally here in the East Kildonan area, we give scholarships out for community service scholarships to the graduating classes of the local school right here at Miles Mac, also River East, Kildonan East, and Elmwood High.
Thanks for doing this.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas. Merry Christmas, everyone.
A Winnipeg lawyer is searching for the framed diplomas and certificates that she accidentally donated to the Restore. That story is coming up. Stay with us. You're watching CBC Winnipeg News. Maureen Terra, a local lawyer, is desperately trying to track down her diplomas. That's because she accidentally donated them to Habitat for Humanity's Restore. But it's not just the pieces of paper she needs back. There's a sentimental reason why she's hoping to track them down. Information Radio host Marcy Marcusa spoke with Maureen Terra this morning.
I was actually moving my house. I was downsizing, as well as moving my office location in the same week in August. So I had a box of diplomas that I was going to move to my new office location. But at the same time, I guess we were packing up boxes, deciding what to donate and what to bring to the new house. And my best guess is somehow the box that was supposed to go to the new office got into the donation boxes.
So what specifically is in there? Your diploma from like your law, or like what how many things did you donate that you didn't mean to?
It was a box full of my professional diplomas and certificates. So everything from my undergraduate degree from Waterloo. I have my law degree from the Robson Hall, the local University of Manitoba Law School. The Law Society actually has 2 certificates on the call to the bar, one for barrister, one for solicitor. One of those is the one that was in the picture that was sent to me.
So let's get to that, because you realized that they may have shown up somewhere because someone reached out to you?
Yes, a complete stranger sent me a message on the Facebook Messenger app, as the text just said, I was at the Restore yesterday and I saw this. If this is you, it looks important. And so I clicked on the picture and there was one of my Law Society call to the bar certificates with a sticker saying $5.
What did you feel when you saw it?
There was a bit of a panic and my heart kind of dropped. So I called the Restore quickly as my mom was getting in the car to drive down there to check in person. And they said, unfortunately, it had been there yesterday, but it just sold that morning.
What are your thoughts on who would buy it? That's what I was thinking about, right? Like, this is your name, this is your document, this is your life.
They do have a whole section of the store with frames, and I guess people buy it for reframing it. And the framing for all of these certificates had been done by my grandmother. She was a photographer and framer. So as I earned each degree, she would put the matting and the framing on it. So it was very beautiful frames. So I like to think that's why people chose that.
And your achievement as a woman when you were starting law school, you had a baby.
Yeah, I had my undergraduate degree, which found me working minimum wage jobs. I worked with special needs folks. And while that was fulfilling, when I found myself pregnant, I realized I'm not going to be able to really, support this child in any meaningful way. I mean, anybody who's living on minimum wage knows what that's like, especially if you're trying to raise a child. So I decided to write the law school admissions test, and I got accepted just after he was born in the spring. And I decided to jump in the fall when he was 4 months old. So he was raised in that law school.
Wow. I love that thread, right? Yeah. Juggling all of that, achieving what you did, and then, someone, an older woman, your grandmother, being so proud of you and framing that. What would it mean to you to get the documents back?
Well, the documents...
and the frames back.
Yeah, and the frames, it would mean the world to me, because they're obviously the original ones. And when you go to reorder the certificates, they just say, these are not duplicate certificates. They'll look the same, but it's...
But you'll know.
But I'll know.
Yeah.
But it would mean a lot to me to get those frames back.
Good luck getting these documents back.
Stay with us. John Sauter is back with your 7-day forecast. You're watching CBC Winnipeg News.
And here is your 7-day forecast. A bright start to tomorrow. Another day above zero across most of southern Manitoba. And then we could see a few flurries in the evening and overnight. A little bit cooler Thursday, Friday, Saturday, but still well above seasonal. We don't see seasonal temperatures until likely Monday or Tuesday next week.
That's a nice little stretch.
Yeah. A national park in Indonesia continues to charge into action to try to keep a critically endangered species from going extinct.
And a new addition is keeping their hopes alive. Here's your Daily Lift. This rare Sumatran rhino calf was born on the weekend. He arrived 10 days early. The calf hasn't been named yet, but his birth is a major moment for the species. Fewer than 80 Sumatran rhinos are believed to survive, and 10 of them live at a sanctuary in the park. The calf's mother, Delilah, was also born there. Oh, wow. So
you know, they're so small and actually kind of cute when they're small, but then they grow up to be very dangerous animals.
Yes.
Very interesting.
Very cute. Well, hopefully this is some hope and it's good news.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think so.
Thank you so much for joining us. We'll see you back here at 11 o'clock.
We'll see you later.